Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian. I'm the owner of the Mardigian Agency located in Lansing, Michigan. A lot of people ask me, why do you have a radio show? Well, it's because we've been able to accomplish something that most captive insurance agents haven't been able to do, and that's having a scalable sales team and a self-managing operations team. And what that's allowed us to do is grow to about double the size of the average captive insurance agency in the United States. And on this show, we share how we've been able to achieve this both practically and tactically so you can apply those same strategies in your business. So let me ask you, are you in a season of feeling overstretched, burned out, and overwhelmed? Because I think everyone is after COVID last year and then the subsequent makeup that we're doing in 2021. And it seems like no matter what, between working at home or working remote, having kids in and out of school, there is something that a concept that has just absolutely been lost, and that is creating margin. And so today's episode is going to be a continuation of our series, No Brainers and Never Happens. And this episode is a no-brainer. You need margin in your life, in your business. And joining me for today's discussion is our special guest,
Alec Nurnberg, Director of Operations for the Mardigian Agency.
Thanks for joining us, Alec, as always. This is something that came up in our conversation today regarding the business. How does the idea of margin get lost so quickly in our hustle culture, our grinding?
It's a few different things, I think. You know, one thing is we glamorize the grind, you know, the long days, the short nights, and no sleep. And, you know, I work every day. I'm making this much money. I have these things, and, you know, I have to grind all the time. And then you put yourself and your well-being and mental stability in the back seat. That's not good. And then, you know, maybe you hate the grind, maybe you hate what you do, but you got to provide in some way for someone or something. And you have to stay in the job you're at because you make good money, but it's demanding and you got to grind. So if you want to keep that job, you got to, you know, you lose margin to accomplish what it takes.
So let's back up. We really didn't define margin.
Yeah. Margin, it's really just not jamming take it down to like a day by day, day to day. Don't jam yourself up too much, you know, leave some time for you to decompress, to drink water, to get your workout in, have lunch. Yeah, right. Have lunch. I recently started doing that.
Yep. And I give you crap for it all the time.
Yep. That's great. Yeah. I mean, just taking care of yourself, kind of, you know, we forget that we need time to ourselves, and that's important. If you do that for yourself, you're going to be more successful in the workplace. Guaranteed. So
the tale of two Lukes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Luke, when you first started, easy 60 to 80 hour work weeks. I would my wife would go to sleep. I'd lay down with her in bed until she fell asleep. I'd roll out of bed. I'd go downstairs, fire up my computer, pour myself a glass of scotch, and work until 3 or 4 in the morning. Go to bed, wake up at 7:30, back at it again.
Yep.
I was stressed out, exhausted. I would skip lunch most days because, dude, I got to get work done, man. Right. Like, if I don't get it done now, it's 3 in the morning. So let's just go. Versus today. Margin has changed the tale. Yeah. It has changed the story.
Right.
Having margin means that I'm not up till 3 in the morning because I'm efficient.
Yeah. You accomplish what you need to during the day.
Yes.
But yeah. You know, because you're healthy. You're in a state that you can.
Your work will expand to the time allotted or contract to the time allotted, right? So this morning was a great example. I had to take my kids to summer camp first thing, my 10 and 12-year-old, and it's a 10-minute drive and then another 10-minute drive to the office after that. So I needed 20 minutes of time. So I was going to be out the door at 8:20, have them to camp by 8:30, be in the office by 8:40, 8:45 at the latest. 8:20 rolls around and my 10-year-old gets a massive nosebleed. He's hemorrhaged, literally like clots are coming out of his nose. My wife is freaking out.
Brutal.
Yeah, like I'm on the phone with the pediatrics office trying to get a referral to an ear, nose, and throat doctor to get it cauterized. Like, because I don't even know if it's going to stop bleeding. Like, right. Like literally, like potentially worst case scenario. Well, 15 minutes passes, it starts slowing down. The clots go away. All right, I think we're going to be okay for today. But now my entire day is 20 or 30 minutes set back. Because it wasn't like we were like, oh, stop bleeding, out the door. No, like now it's like, okay, where were we? What do we need to get together? How do we get out the door? What are our next steps? And because I had margin, our meeting was, so this is where margin comes in. I'm gonna start giving tactics at this point. Okay. Our meeting was set from 9 to 10.
Yep.
It was a half an hour conversation. So I built in a half an hour already. Right. So being pushed back a half an hour didn't really change a lot.
No.
Now the meeting ended up going back and it ended up running over for 45 minutes, but I had an hour between my so it was 9 to 10, and I had an open hour from 10 to 11.
Yep.
So when it bled over, it was still okay.
Yeah.
Got to my 11 o'clock. My 11 o'clock was a closing. A commercial client moved their business over to us, and I thought it was going to be an hour appointment. He's a very interpersonal guy, likes to tell stories. I was there for 15 minutes. He was like rushing me out the door. Yeah. Perfect. Signed the paperwork, gave me the money, and said, "Get the heck out." Yeah. Hey, no problem. Let's go. So I'm back at the office. Yeah. And I had there was margin there, so that when something does happen unexpected, and then my noon, the wrong number was in the event, and I didn't connect with them until 12:45, 45 minutes late. But because I had scheduled an hour for what I knew would be a 15-minute conversation, I still was okay.
Right.
And I was able to make it now to the radio show to record the radio show on time. So you can see how all those events, not one of them, the only one that went, and none of them went as planned. None of them did.
No, not
even the one that was shortened.
It was a great day still, but nothing went the way it was supposed to. Yeah.
But because I built in margin, I was able to tend to my family's needs and the business's needs. And because of that 45-minute setback, all I did was move my lunch to before I made that phone call, and I was able to get a meal in.
Right. And on top of that, I think to go with it, you don't have this, like I just said, it was a great day because it was. We didn't have the stress of all of that jamming us up or not going as planned. Like that stress that would typically come with it without margin, we didn't have that. Like we were laughing and joking in the office still. We still had a good day.
Yep.
You know?
And a lot of people, and this was me. I ran appointments back to back to back. So I'd have a 10, I'd have an 11, I have a noon, I have a 1, I have a 2, I have a 3, I have a 4, I have a 5.
Right, with no window in between.
Nothing. Yeah. And I just hope that one of them went a little short. Well, it never did. It always one of them always went long, and it pushed into the next appointment, and then that messes everything up. This is classic, right? So this is one of the best examples in recent history of a lack of margin and how it negatively impacted this business. And now I realize it actually is impacting them negatively on a daily basis. And it explains a lot of why their business is running the way it is. To my pediatrician. Won't put him on blast to say the practice's name, but they are the best pediatric practice in our area. All three of my kids go to them. We had a wellness check for my 10-year-old yesterday. The wellness check was at 8 a.m. They open at 8 a.m. So do you think that they were, and there's a pre-check now with COVID, you have to call in, you have to all the stuff you normally do in the...
It's 8:30 before you're in bed, or you're in the room.
It was 8:30, it was like 8:20 something, right? So I literally turned to my son, I go, this is really bad business practice. They should be scheduling their first appointment at 8:15, having them in the room by 8:20. Right. Because obviously, I was there 5 minutes early. I text them, you have to text them that you're there. Hey, I'm here for my son's appointment. Yeah. And nobody answered. And they ended up calling my ex-wife saying, hey, are you here for your appointment? I'm like, yeah, I texted you at 7:55. Oh, we didn't get it. I said, I didn't say this to them, but I wanted to say it's because you weren't open. Right. Like I'm the one, I was early, like I'm supposed to, and you weren't open yet. So now you're running 20 minutes late. For us, it's a minor.
You're the one paying them, essentially.
Well, it's a minor inconvenience. I'm not complaining about the first world problem. My point is, if we were 20 minutes late and we were the first appointment of the day, every other appointment they ran for the rest of the day was 20 minutes late, at least. Let's just assume that those ones probably ran a little long and were late too. Yeah. That they're losing tons of money by not building in a 15-minute margin at 8 a.m. for their business. Right. And I'll tell you what, like to get in, if we want to talk to a doctor and sit down and it's not like an emergency sick appointment, like they're throwing up and dehydrated and we need to make sure that they're okay. Right. If it's not like an emergency sick appointment, you're talking 6 to 8 weeks before you can get into them. Well, of course it's 6 to 8 weeks. You're running late every day. You don't have the margin built in. So they're probably underbooking as a way of creating margin. Sure. And I know it's hurting their bottom line practice. Oh yeah, it has to be. Yeah. Now it doesn't mean they're not doing well.
Of course.
But they probably could be a lot less stressed. Who knows? Honestly, there's only like 3 nurses that have been there for the 12 years that my kid has been there. That's not normal in nursing. So they clearly have a turnover issue, and it's probably related to how they run their appointments back to back. So their clinic manager should be saying like, hey, nope, our first appointment's 8:15. Yeah. Period. And then they close for lunch.
Just close it.
Like they don't answer their phone. You can't go in there. Nothing. Yeah. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just stagger your lunches? Right. Because now you got to
keep the desk band and
when they come back for lunch, they're going to have to take all the phone calls that for an hour nobody answered.
Returning all 87 messages that you had in the last hour and a half. Yeah,
you know,
right.
just you're on phones Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So these are examples of margin where they're just this particular business isn't building in margin. It is negatively affecting their bottom line. It has to. So now there's a million versions of that for your business as you're listening to this, or your life. But that's just a really good example. So what does it look like to create margin inside your life and business? Well, first of all, you have to know where your time's going.
Yeah. You have to know where your time's going, and you have to understand that it's a weird feeling at first, I think. You know, like I left the Marine Corps, a very structured day every single day. Saturdays and Sundays, even every day is structured. Yep. You're here at this time, then you're here at this time, then you're going here at this time. I got out and I was used to that pace, so naturally I go and try to do that in my life, you know, work, school, whatever it is, family life, whatever, trying to adjust to the real world. Then a mentor was like, hey, you got to slow down, man. Like you're not in the Marine Corps anymore. You were yesterday, but you're not today. It's a different world out here. You're going to kill yourself out here.
You're going to burn out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And
miss details.
And I was like, well, no, I just did it for 4 years. I can do this. Like it's what's comfortable to me. He's like, no. Like I did it for 35 years and this is what you do. And I was like, oh yeah, you're probably right. But it was that change. It feels like you aren't contributing as much. It feels like you're not as productive. It feels like you're lazy. And I think that's just a misconception that we might have. You know, we hold ourselves to a certain standard and level. And then when you have to do a little less all of a sudden, you know, you get more time to yourself. You get to relax a little bit. You get to be more healthy. And it's a change, and it's very, very weird to experience.
So there's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And in that book, he makes the argument and really does prove it that the more margin you have in your life, actually the more successful you are. When you look at guys like Bill Gates, right, which is, you know, that's I got to navigate this one well with the political climate and whatever the perception of him is, which I don't even know.
I don't know anymore.
We can't argue that he started Microsoft and is really successful. Right? Nobody argues that, especially those who hold stock. But once a year for 7 days, he goes to this remote cabin out in the wilderness where there's no internet and no TV, and he takes a stack of books and he sits there and he reads and he envisions the future. Yeah. And so he comes up with all the crazy stuff that we have in our world as far as computers go that he's invented out of this margin. Dude, that's 1/52nd of his entire year, right? Yeah. That's 2-3% of his entire year. He just pure margin, just to think, just to disconnect and think. And in that book, in Deep Work, he talks about this one guy who literally quits his job and for 2 years learns to program. And so he built in 2 years of margin in his life to learn a new skill set. But now he gets paid $100,000 an hour to fix code because he's one of like 6 people in the world who knows how to read, write,
AI stuff and all that.
I don't even know. That's way beyond mine. Right. So that's macro.
Yeah.
Go down to micro. Okay. This morning, rather than going downstairs and logging on my computer and starting the quotes that I'm going to do after these shows, my wife was still in bed. I woke up early and had a 5-mile ruck. And so I was home early. I was home at like 6:30 and she was still in bed, and I could have just gone downstairs. And instead I laid down next to her and we spent 10 minutes just relaxing as she slowly woke up. That's 10 minutes of margin that I just invested in my marriage that I can't measure. There's no ROI on that.
Right.
But while I'm sitting here, my wife just texted me, "I love you so much." Okay. Well, it took me 10 minutes of margin to just give her some quality time before the busyness of the day got started. That's the type of stuff we're talking about.
Yes.
10 minutes, Tony Robbins says every day he wakes up and goes for a walk. He says, if you can't find 15 minutes of your morning to go for a walk,
there's a problem.
You need to question the health of your life and your lifestyle. So I challenge our listeners today to build that margin in, find those things that really matter, the big dominoes that if you knock it over, it knocks everything else over, right? Sometimes just grabbing your kid, looking him in the eye and telling him you love him and giving him a big hug fills their tank for the day, and now they behave. And now you don't have to sit there and correct them all day because you gave them the love. Their kids are like plants, right? You have to water them and nurse them with love and attention. And now that kid is going to behave later. You're not going to have to deal with it later. It's that type of margin. It's taking the time. Yesterday, Shelby started talking about how much she enjoys working with Haley. It took a half an hour. It was a half an hour conversation, but I had built in margin. I had actually, in my schedule, there was nothing scheduled there. It says free time. Yeah. And it ended up being a half an hour conversation with one of my employees where she shared all the things she values That's pretty important to know.
That's very important to know. Yeah.
Right? How many business owners have no idea what's important to their employees and don't even care?
I don't want to give a percentage, but a lot.
Probably
probably.
a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot, a majority.
So you do have to protect that margin. So don't just create it. I'm challenging you to create it, but you also have to protect it. When it's in there, live by it. Do not let things interrupt it. It should be a rarity that it gets interrupted. The last year with COVID has been terrible because I'd schedule it and the kids will go back to school, or you schedule it and then
they're out of school,
and then football is delayed, and now we can't go on vacation when football is going to be done. Right. So you have to protect it, and you actually have to be active in protecting it. So I challenge our listeners: build in margin in your life so that you can achieve at a higher level
and be happy. You'll be happier.
You'll be happier. Your wife, your marriage will be happier.
Yeah, right. Just life will be better.
And overall, your team will be healthier. So thanks so much for listening for today's conversation. Be sure to stay in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at the Mardigian Agency. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.